For the past 15 years, the Boise High School's EVSC Community Link has been bringing stories from the community to you, our viewer. Our mission is to produce high-quality, informational, and educational, in-depth segments on people and organizations that the tri-state area has to offer. More than 120 individual segments have aired here on WNIN since the fall of 2003. The following is the first part in a series of short documentaries that the Community Link is filming on the restoration of the Henry Cook Mansion located on Fulton Avenue in Evansville.
Hello, I'm Lucas Newfer and welcome to the Henry Cook home. This great home was built in 1899 by Henry E. Cook, the treasurer of the F.W. Cook Brewing Factory. Please come on in. This home is historically important because it's one of the most prominent examples of colonial revival architecture built by Harrison Shotwell in 1899. This home sat in the middle of two other Cook homes that were here previously but have now been demolished, making this home much more significant because it is the last Cook home standing. This home is notable because it has intricate hardwood floors that are inlay parquet floors made of all different kinds of wood. The staircases in this home are very intricate, even with different matching spindles. The fireplaces, which there are 5 of them, have different styles on each one. The fireplaces are made of wood, except for the one in this room, which is made of brick in the Craftsman style. It has egg and dart matching style there. All of the woodwork in this home remains original. Most of it is unpainted, and most of the woodwork is still in this home. There's an intricate sunroom in this home that has a marble fountain in the center of the room. The room also has hand-painted murals on the walls. There are also several other hand-painted murals in the home, including one above this fireplace here. There's one above the staircase, which represents Heidelberg, Germany, which is where Henry Cook obtained a PhD in literature. Henry Cook was a very intelligent man. He was also a prominent fencer, so we believe that he had much German heritage, and you can see it throughout the house. On the second floor in this home, there is a bathroom that is marble cladded. The bathroom also has murals on the walls all around the room. And there's another bathroom as well that has what's called a sitz tub. This is a very unique tub that originates from Germany. You actually do sit in it, and it is unlike any other tub I've seen anywhere else. The home has a variety of different architectural influences throughout the home. You can see Gothic Revival style influences in some of the woodwork as well as in the front door. There's a French style parlor mirror over in the parlor room over there. And then there's colonial revival and Craftsman architecture spread throughout to create an eclectic mix of Victorian architecture that this house holds. The restoration process for this home is one that is long, arduous, and difficult to upkeep and maintain, but it's one that with any house restoration you have to do certain things before you can do many other things. The biggest problem with this home is that it was actually vacant for 26 years. Naturally, the elements got into the house, and also the house has wood siding on the exterior. So unlike a brick home, it doesn't quite maintain and hold up quite as well as a brick home would. The home did need a brand new roof. It had a slate tile roof on it, which I did not replace. I rather actually just repaired. But on the back of the house, it had an addition where they put a tin roof on the back of the house, and then previous ownership actually tarred over this tin roof. The problem with this is that the tin crackled under the sun, thus making the tin and tar rot and just basically collapse, which is where the water started coming in. I also had a chimney that fell over at one point and fell right on the tin roof, and a tin plus the bricks doesn't hold up very well. Once the roof is done, and it is completed now, we have to start on the brickwork around the foundation. Basically, with any restoration process, you have to have a solid roof and you have to have a solid foundation before you have anything else. With the roof being done, now we are working our way around the house, redoing the brickwork where it has cracked, water's gotten into some of the bricks, and there's no major structural foundation damage. It's more so just minor cracks in the bricks from water getting in over so long with lack of maintenance, lack of upkeep. After that, we will be working on the siding. That is why the house looks as bad as it does now. It has the old wood siding, which was painted tan at one point, an ugly tan color, and from the factory that's next door, the smog actually got onto the siding. That combination of the tan color plus the smog gives the house kind of a damp, dark look. This dark look in comparison with the old wood makes the house look very dilapidated, kind of like an Addams Family looking house. So that will be the third step. We're kind of working top, bottom, middle. Once that is finished, the house will look exceptionally better. We have started painting some of the white trim. You can see some of it around the house. You can see what the new white trim looks like. And then after that, we will start on the interiors for the restoration process. Every room in the home has plaster walls with curved ceilings, and then the ceilings and walls are actually canvassed over with a paintable canvas. Some of the walls do have murals on them, and those will be restored and looked at by a painting restoration specialist. And then the floors will all be looked at by the different flooring specialists to restore the wood. And we will just take it a room at a time to restore the wood and restore the plaster and keep it as original as possible. So a lot of people wonder and question, what does it take to do a restoration project like this, and can you take one on yourself? Well, the answer is certainly yes, but there are things that it would have to definitely look at before taking on something like this, even if it was a much smaller house or a house that had less work. Most importantly, you have to check the foundation of the house. While a house could be rebuilt foundation-wise, sometimes it's not cost-effective to do that. Other areas you have to look at the actual damage that has been done. In this house, a lot of the damage looks very bad, but in reality, a lot of the damage is not as bad as it seems. The plaster work could be knocked out fairly quickly and could be fixed. A lot of the structural damage is minor on this house. The brickwork can be fixed with just some tuck pointing. We don't have to re-pour a foundation here, and we don't necessarily have to lift the house up with some floor jacks or anything. As far as other things that you have to look at, most of these older homes were lined with asbestos, which is dangerous, but it can be removed safely. Other things like lead paint, which is in almost all houses built before 1978, and it's commonly on your windowsills. On this house in particular, it's on the entire exterior of the house, which a lot of houses now, if you buy to restore, that lead on the exterior of the house has been abated or it's been covered over with aluminum siding, for example. I'm thinking of another house that's on Washington Avenue that needs restoration that has aluminum siding on it, and the lead paint is actually not on the house any longer. So if someone would take on a project like that, they wouldn't have to worry about the lead paint. Other than that, you have to worry about things like just sealing the house up. When I first purchased this home, there was a ton of broken windows, there still are a few, and there was a lot of critters that got into the house. There is an infamous groundhog that used to live in this house. He chewed on some of the wood, so if you look around you can see some of the woodwork that he chewed on. There were a few birds in the house, a few things here and there that we just had to get out, which didn't really take that much work, but it's something to keep in mind and keep note of when you do buy a house project like this. After the restoration, I actually do plan to call this place my home. I feel very at home here even during the restoration. After this home, I do plan to restore other houses in and around Evansville, maybe even outside in other areas as well. I feel like they just don't build homes like these anymore, and it's sad to see that new homes don't have any kind of quality or character like this at all. Certainly I understand, working in the real estate industry, that building a home like this would be very difficult and would also be very expensive, and the market for a home of this caliber, new in Evansville especially, probably is very low and wouldn't be beneficial for builders. I do plan to restore as many homes as I possibly can here in this area, just to kind of bring back Evansville's neighborhoods. We have a ton of kind of rundown, dilapidated neighborhoods that at one time were probably the most idealistic neighborhoods to actually live in, and it is sad to see that now they're lined with homes that either are run down or have already been demolished and are vacant lots. So that's kind of my mission and goal, and I plan to set this home here as an example to others, that once it's finished and restored, I do plan to show it off to others. I do plan to invite people into my home to show them, you know, this home at one time was basically looking at the wrecking ball, and now it is a home that's lived in and been restored.
Up next, Roth Mason of Mason Brothers Funeral Home explains what his responsibilities are and what led him to be, of all things, a funeral director.
My name is Roth Mason. I'm a licensed funeral director in the states of Indiana and Kentucky. I am the funeral director here at R. Mason Brothers Memorial Chapel in Evansville, Indiana. The Mason Funeral Home started back in 1937 with my mother and my father, Ernest Mason and Mamie Mason. My mother, who is 99 years old, still lives in Madisonville, Kentucky, and she is the boss of all 4 locations. I would like to enlighten you on how I became to be a funeral director. When I was a little boy, we lived over the funeral home there in Madisonville, and at different times as a baby, I would move around upstairs, and sometimes I realized that my family was downstairs doing something of which I didn't know what. I would, as I was able, as I became older, would go downstairs and stand and look to see exactly what was going on. I must admit, it was kind of strange at first, but at the same time I became to be interested in what they were doing and found myself there on a regular occasions. After high school and a year of college, I decided to go to mortuary school, the Mid-America School of Mortuary Science in Jeffersonville, Indiana. After a year there, I started my apprenticeship in the states of Indiana and Kentucky. Within 3 years, I was testing for my funeral director's license as well as my embalming license in both states. I guess you would be wondering what the life of a funeral director is, or what a funeral director does on a daily basis. As a funeral director here at Mason Brothers, it's my responsibility over all of the staff and people that come in and out of our doors to see that everything is ran right and done under the law. I truly believe that that's what a funeral director must do when serving families. This is the most difficult time anyone might have during their lifetime. And as a funeral director, I think it's important that I know that, as well as the people around me here on my staff, them knowing that. As a funeral director, when meeting with a family, the biggest job I may have is listening. Oftentimes, people want something different from one family to another. Listening is a very important part of a funeral director's job. Once you've found out what someone's wishes are, then it's my job to go step by step with them through making their arrangements. Part of it involves the services of which they have chosen, what type of service they may want, whether or not they may want embalming or viewing for their loved one. These things all are part of making funeral arrangements. It goes right down to finding out the information for death certificates, as well as newspaper information, meeting with clergy, arranging flowers, ordering flowers, or just sitting down with them to discuss their funeral programs. All of these are things that are done during the arrangements process. If I may, let me take you into one of our chapels so that you may see where services are carried out for different loved ones. We're here in our main chapel where the deceased oftentimes is laid here before family and friends. Families also use this particular chapel for first viewing as well as visitation with the public. Oftentimes people will meet here. People may or may not have seen one another in years, may sit paying homage to their loved one. In most funeral homes, you would find a chapel like this where the deceased most likely would be laid out before family and friends. Before they get to this point, oftentimes they would be in our morgue where we prepare your loved one. Prior to any public viewing or visitation, oftentimes the deceased must be embalmed. Here in our morgue is where the art of embalming takes place. It is my personal feeling that each embalmer is responsible for diagnosing and deciding upon what chemicals to use on a deceased remain. On a deceased person, the art of embalming, as I've said, has certain rules and regulations from state to state that must be followed before a deceased person can be viewed by the public. It is important to us that everyone is disinfected, preserved properly, and properly made up, meaning that we may have to make up a person's face with different beauty products, as well as the disinfection portion of the embalming process. Oftentimes we would arrange for a hairdresser to come in depending upon what that said person might need. This is our casket display room where families often have to come to choose what type of casket they want for their loved one. Caskets can range from a moderate price up to thousands of dollars, depending upon what type of casket someone may desire. You'll find that you have caskets here in our display room that are, I'm trying to say how different one casket might be from another, depending upon a person's preference. Everybody's different, and a lot of caskets are designed with that thought in mind. This is the type of job that is just not made for anyone. Oftentimes when you see people at a funeral home, they are special people. They're the type of people that enjoy working with people, not only the dead, but the living as well. I do want to thank everyone for spending this time with me and allowing me to explain my experience as a funeral director. I must say too that I wouldn't trade my job for anything. I love what I do, and it is a serious job. It does require me to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I've accepted that as a way of life, you might say.
In our last segment, senior reporter Keegan Byers interviews his trainer and coach, Evansville's own native son, former World Boxing Federation heavyweight champion of the world, Danny Thomas.
What got you into boxing?
When I was 14 years old, my oldest brother was a fighter, and he was so smooth out there and nobody could hit him, and it made me want to be a fighter too. And on top of that, my grandpa, he was a fighter, professional fighter.
At what age did you really get into this?
At the age of 14.
14. Was that difficult at the time, being a 14-year-old? Were you with like a lot of older people or people your age?
I was already messing around with the martial arts and everything before I started boxing, and like I say, my oldest brother, he was just so tough. He was undefeated as an amateur fighter, and his coach would pay us $5 every time you could hit him in the head. That's how good he was, and I just said, man, I want to be like my big brother.
Mm-hmm. How did you progress after you started competing, like to each higher step in fighting?
I won the Golden Gloves, won the Black Expo, won the White River State Park Games, won the USABF State Championship, the regionals, tried out for the 1984 Olympic boxing team.
Mm-hmm. So you just kept progressing. Like, how long did it take you to get to each step, would you say?
Well, my goal was always to end up being one of the top 20 fighters in the United States. Mm-hmm. 1 year to try out for the Olympics or make the Olympic team. It took me 10.5 years to accomplish that goal. And 1984, there I was trying out for the Olympic boxing team. Got ranked number 7 in the United States.
How long after you went to the Olympics did it take you to get your belt?
Well, I probably should have had the belt sooner than what I was. I was like 23 when I tried out for the Olympic team, and I won the belt at the age of 50. I won the WBF World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, you know, the thing about it, I probably should have had the belt a whole lot sooner than what I did, but as being a top athlete, there's a whole lot of temptation out there, and sometimes a lot of us will fall off into it until we open our eyes up and realize what we really got to do, and then we get back on the right track.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the top fighters you've competed against?
Well, in amateur fighting, I fought about every best state champion there was around in my era, you know, as far as going to Olympic trials and stuff like that. But as a professional fighter, I fought guys like James Lights Out Tony. I was the second person to go the distance with him. Montel Griffin, he was another middleweight champion of the world. Darren Schoolboy Van Horn, he was another middleweight champion of the world. Leon Zabarbary, he was another middleweight champion of the world. Rob Calloway, he was the light heavyweight champion of the world. And I was the first guy to take Rob Calloway 12 rounds. I was outweighed by about 30 pounds, but I still took him the distance in his own hometown. I mean, he's a top fighter, tough guy, good fighter.
Do you still train as much as you used to, or like stay in the same shape?
Yeah, I think I train harder now, you know, I mean, you know, as you get older, you get wiser. And, you know, you start fighting a little bit smarter than what you would as you was an amateur fighter. I mean, a younger fighter, because a younger fighter, he'll go out there and throw everything out on the table in 1 or 2 rounds. But as you get older in the fight game, you realize that it's just the small things that count in the fight game and makes you win the game. I can make a good fighter look bad. You know, I can almost make him look like that anybody in the audience can almost whoop him. It's because the things that I do in the ring now is I make my opponent do what I want him to do without even knowing it.
What led you into running this gym?
I always said I wanted to be a teacher. I didn't realize that I would be a boxing teacher, you know, which is a blessing itself. And my thing is, as far as running a gym, I basically open up the gym to keep the kids off the street and give them something positive to do and hopefully lead them in the right direction, because regardless of what your background is, I feel that everybody deserves a chance in life. And so far I've been pretty successful. You know, I go around to the schools and talk to the kids, go down to the YCC and talk to the kids. My thing is try to catch anybody before they get too far out there in the world, you know, because we all slip and fall and make mistakes, but, you know, it ain't good for people to try to hold something against you your whole life if you didn't pay for your mistakes. You know, I mean, get that opportunity. And as long as you're showing love, you know what, you always bring out the best in others.
How many young people are you working with today?
I probably done trained just about everybody here in this surrounding area, you know, as far as Evansville, Newburgh, Mount Vernon, Princeton, Boonville. Even have some guys that drive all the way down here from Tell City and Jasper, Mount Carmel, Illinois, you know, Vincennes. You know, there's fighters that come from all over, you know. I mean, I've been doing it for so long, you know, I'm well recognized in the fight game, in the fight world, you know, by fighting some of the best fighters around. And it's Mike Tyson's sparring partner for like 3 months when he's the heavyweight champion of the world. And, you know, I love it.
What do people benefit from coming to the gym and you training them?
Well, one thing, it teaches discipline and it teaches respect. You know, I mean, it humbles a lot of guys. I mean, you know, your best fighters are always the quiet ones, you know, that don't make a whole lot of noise because they always thinking. And the ones that's making a whole lot of noise, I mean, you know, they just trying to scare somebody or something. And, you know, the thing is, when you're training somebody, it's all about what that individual wants out of it.
What would be a beginning workout for someone first coming to the gym?
The art of fighting is a very physical sport, and it gets you in tip-top shape. Regardless of what sport you're playing, the art of fighting, the workouts, will get you in the shape that you need to be in. I guarantee you'll be in better shape than the rest of the athletes that's playing any other sport. But what I do, I start off with 1 round of jump rope, 1 round of my agility room up inside there, 1 round of ring work. Then we might do 3 sets of 25 on the stomach on one machine, 3 sets of 25 on another machine. And then we might work some arms, chest, back, legs. Work basically the whole entire body, because in order to be a fighter, you have to not really be physically strong, but be intelligent and smart, and be willing to do what others won't do in order to make it to the top.
I've been here for 2 or 3 months. How do you think I've progressed?
Well, I've seen a great change in you, Keegan. You know, I mean, as far as your body structure, see you throwing your punches and stuff the right way, you know, and on top of that, you know, you done got good enough to where you're bringing friends down with you and you're helping them out. So, you know, first you became the pupil, and then you became like a young instructor as well your own self. So I think you're doing a great job, young man, young champion.
Danny Thomas, for the boxing world, not only boxing world, the martial arts world, the MMA world, the fight community, he's a huge success. I'm a promoter for American Crido Kickboxing and a owner of Better Made Fight League. Had it not been for Danny Thomas, neither one of my production shows would go off with a success. He contributes himself voluntarily for every single one of my productions that I do. He offers to help my students at the gym I own. He's a great friend and just a great a leader. I look up to him a lot, and I get a lot of my guidance from what Danny T has done for the community, along with the martial arts community as well. How
do you affect the boxing community in Evansville?
You know, the thing is we try to put these fights on and bring the community together. And it's helping our youth, you know, because today's youth, man, they need something positive to do with their lives instead of losing their lives out here on the street. They could come to the gym, start training, and if we put these shows on, it's going to be a lot more our youth wanting to come to the gym because they want to be a part of it. You know, we give it all we got. You know, sometimes we neglect our families, neglect our children, you know, to put these shows on and to try to train you guys and lead you in the right direction. It's because we love you guys, you know. We was a youth one time our own selves, and we understand how tough it is, even though it's tougher today than it was in my days. But still trying to reach out and make a difference. They say the children are the future, but you have to ask yourself how many people are doing anything for the future. Are they walking away from it, or are they putting a hand in?
I appreciate all your time that you gave us today, and I thank you for coaching me and making me a better boxer.
Well, I tell you what, all your appreciation is well accepted, and I'm glad that you came down here and supported me and my gym.
We hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to see other stories from our vault, visit the link on the screen. Tune in next month for a new episode of Bosse's EVSC Community Link. We would like to extend a special thanks to the following businesses and organizations for providing their services: Gerald and Leanne Scott, Sharon Adams with Timeless Photography, and the Acropolis Mediterranean Restaurant. This has been a Bulldog production.